The Atomic Real Estate Show, bringing you the real estate of real estate. Brought to you by Danny Bennett Productions in partnership with Direct Subs.
This episode is made possible by our friends over at Milady Landscaping. Milady Landscaping is your go-to service for all of your residential and commercial landscaping and hardscaping needs. You can reach them on Instagram at Milady Landscaping, miladylandscaping.com, and 267-836-2102. Milady Landscaping handles all of our properties, my personal and investment properties.
Hey guys, what's going on? Ryan Dolan here with another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show. We got Nick Cessna in the building, and we have a really awesome guest this week. It is Chris Woods. So Chris has a phenomenal, interesting story that we're all going to unpack here. But Chris is a podcaster, fellow podcaster like us, with a show called Pain with a Purpose, which we'll obviously dive into. And he works for Recovery Centers of America. But what we wanted to do is kind of chat how this all ties into real estate, right? Like how we're going to start. So the story's going to be awesome. I'm excited to hear it. It's a little outside of my comfort zone because I don't know much about what we're going to talk about today. So thanks for jumping on the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, fellas. I mean, it's a good thing that you don't know what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah,
right?
it's exciting.
Consider yourself blessed.
Yeah.
We don't plan. We don't fucking plan anything. We don't do any research. The reason why I contacted you, we met in John's store the one day at Philly Gaines, and we have mutual friends. Jake's a very good friend of mine, good friend of yours. You and Jake were doing some nefarious activities back in the day that weren't very healthy for humankind.
Jake ruined my life.
Yeah, right. So
put that on record.
So on the show now to defend himself.
I've always known who you are. I know one of your brothers, and then I met you in a store. I'm like, all right, cool, and I wanted to bring you on to talk about how you were at the lowest point in your life. And most people's goal, a common goal, is to become a homeowner. And listening to your podcast and hearing your story and knowing how low you were in life, that couldn't have been anything that you thought was obtainable when you were doing where you were at.
No.
Home ownership had to be just outrageous. And now the fact that you have a loving wife and you have a family and you have this suburban life is it's a true, like, fucking amazing story to go from fucking the gutter to the suburbs.
I mean, and listen, and that'll probably be like the second or like the end of the show, right? Where it's like now we still have goals. Like I don't have a white picket fence yet, but like it's definitely, in the goals moving forward. And the house is a little too small, but we'll get there as well. But yeah, kind of like what you talked about. Like I didn't know how to make a phone payment. I didn't know how to make anything. I didn't know how to show up to work consistently, right? So buying a house was never even, having kids was never even a thing. Right?
I was going to say holding down a relationship. I mean, anything.
Yeah.
So this is why, this is going to be great to tie in, right? Because people think we only talk about wins, big money, successful people. But, the case with a lot of these people is it's hard to buy a home. It's hard to get into real estate. It's hard to be an adult, as you just mentioned, right? Like to figure it out. And then when you have substance abuse problems, like, many do, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, that plays a big factor in how to get from point A to point B. So I'm loving what we're going to hear here because it's like, a lot of people think it's just, hey, we're all rich people with a lot of money. And it's like, man, it's a struggle to get to where you're at to where you're going. So
let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up, like we were kind of talking about, right across the Walnut Lane Bridge. So, I say Roxborough, Manayunk, but really the zip code was Germantown.
Sure. There's like 3 blocks there that everybody that I ever known to live there always hung out in Roxborough, Manayunk.
Yeah.
It was like it's like no man's land because to the left of you is $1 million homes, and then you get up in the Westmount area and Chestnut Hill, and then to the right of you is like the park. And then you have Lincoln Drive below you. So, like, you're in this, like, no man's land right there. And literally every kid that I've ever known that grew up there was always in Roxborough, Manayunk.
Yeah, I mean, it was also a really cool. It was a really cool place to grow up, right? Because, like, as you get older, where I grew up is. But when I was growing up, nobody really knew. So it was like we were secluded enough where, like, nobody had any idea. Especially
you're like, why are those kids walking past Walnut Lane Golf Course?
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing over there?
Yeah, they're like, they're going to go like smoke whatever, going to a keg. It's like, no, I'm just going home.
It's walking across this bridge. It's all 150 foot high.
But yeah, the history over there is really cool, right? A lot of those houses are like those old Victorians, which I didn't respect it at the time.
Sure. But then one block over, it looks like Valley homes. It looks like the exact same homes from the Valley.
Yeah, or if you go like Johnson, yep.
Yeah, so this is the pocket that people for listening is kind of like right over the Walnut Lane Bridge, Bluebell Hills.
Yep.
He's a Kingsley Street guy, which, if you say King, I'm also a Kingsley Street guy, which we found out. And my son's middle name is Kingsley, which Nick is ripping me for
It's
off
the most
camera.
Roxborough Maniac shit I've
that's
ever
just what we do.
heard
When we
of.
leave out of Roxborough Maniac, I have one request and one request on. Well, I tried to name him Tiger because he won the Masters that day. My wife shot that down extremely fast. So middle name Kingsley.
Kudos
Either
to her.
way. So no, I like you even more now.
Now,
that
when
you're
you said that,
Kingsley
you're like,
Street
I
guy.
want to name him after the street I grew up on. Was she like, I can't handle the level of white trash that comes with Roxborough Maniac?
Well, no, I prefaced it. That's why I let off with, hey, Tiger's winning the Master today. Can we name our son Tiger? And she said no. I said, all right, I'll settle with the middle name of Kingsley. And she's like, what? And worked out. Either way, it rolls good. William Kingsley. It's
It
a
does
great
sound
name.
good.
It sounds like a distinguished.
It's got a good ring to it.
Yeah. But
Flows.
either way, enough about that. So you were over in a really great kind of pocket between like Clifford Park and the football field there. So. Where did you go to school at? Where, grade school? Because you're not are you St. John the Baptist?
No.
Okay.
No. So I bounced around a little bit, actually. So I started grade school at, if you're familiar with Chestnut Hill, so Norwood Fontbonne.
Yeah, sure.
We should have known then that there were some red flags going to be raised. So, they asked me not to come back. That school, they don't kick you out.
It's tough, yeah.
They don't kick you out. They, contact your family, like, hey, he's not a fit here. Figure something else out.
It's a nice campus.
It's beautiful.
I was over there for a basketball game. My son had to play there one
It's
night.
very, very nice. But yeah, then from there went to St. Mary's. All the grade schools closed.
Yeah.
So from St. Mary's went to St. Bridget's. Graduated from St. Bridget's.
What they call that?
Were you like the
was that
only
holy?
kid?
Was that a Holy Child or something like that when they merged?
When they
all went
merged
to
everything, I
Holy-
think it was St.
yeah.
Lucy's, right? And they changed it to Holy Child.
Oh, that's
yeah.
it.
No. It was Holy Family, and they changed it to Holy Child. It was on.
That's right.
It was
yep.
on Fountain
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah. Okay.
They closed St. Lucy's. In fact, our friends knocked the building down and church down, fucking scumbags. But that's a whole different story. But it's a beautiful.
But isn't the
development now.
actual school?
The
one
school,
of the schools is
part of
still
the
something,
part of
right?
the school's there. So Holy Family became Holy Child. So they shut down St. Lucy's, which was the Italian kids. St. Joseph's was the Polish kids. St. John's was like all the mainly Irish.
Yeah.
St. Mary's was like all the mutts. And it was like, it's weird how it was like wherever your lineage came from Europe, that's what little parish you were. And then the only thing left open now is IHM. They even shut down St. Bridget's.
Yeah. Yeah, which is crazy because if you look at it from Midvale, St. Bridget's was huge.
Yeah.
It's like intimidating. It sits
Yeah.
up on
So
the
you
hill.
graduated from,
St.
and
Yep, from
then
St.
where?
Bridget's.
Ended up at Roman.
Went to Roman. Yeah.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah.
How was your experience at Roman?
I mean, it was great. I played 2 sports, mostly varsity all 4 years. But that's really when my life started to take a left when everybody was staying straight or going right.
In high school.
Yeah, yeah. So literally,
That's where
freshman
Jake
year.
ruined your life.
That's where Jake ruined my life. Depending on what day of the week was, I ruined Jake's life. Jake ruined my life. But yeah, so that's when the drugs really kind of started to take over. It was back in 2007. So the opiates and the pills were a very big thing. They were everywhere. Not that it was that it was Roman's fault by any means, but they could have never
Police
or figured out what was really going on in there. So yeah, I was playing soccer and baseball, and essentially I was kind of if you know what withdrawal is, by the middle of freshman to the end of freshman year, I was at lunch withdrawing every day.
So you were getting high in
Damn,
freshman.
at 14
you were getting high
years
in freshman
old?
year.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Did you start with?
No, so I
Weed,
actually
pill?
so I didn't even smoke weed until my junior year.
So you went just head first. You went in the
Were you
deep.
drinking
but
like everybody else?
I was drinking like everybody else, but I didn't know that what I was doing was really what I was doing.
What you were doing,
I didn't know.
sure.
I actually if somebody was smoking weed, I was looking down on them you scum.
Remember that back in the day, everyone was
Yeah.
the dirtball drug, and everybody was like, "Man,
Yeah,
that's
and I was
what
I'll
we thought."
never be that. And it's turns out I'm doing the stuff that
Because nobody
people
knew
are still
about
hooked on
it.
now.
Nobody really knew about it at that time.
No.
It wasn't in your face like it is now. It wasn't this epidemic at the time.
And again, nobody was talking about it, right?
Yeah.
God forbid. But yeah, so I was fully addicted in high school, doing whatever I had to do to essentially get a couple of dollars,
not that I want to, go back to day one, but so you were just a regular drinker, eighth grade, freshman year, and then somebody came to you and said, like, you want to just bang some pills?
Yeah, well, essentially, yeah. I mean, it's not any fault to him. I would have found Jake.
Sure, yeah. You would have found a person that would have...
Not to keep harping on
no,
Jake. It's not
of course
Jake's fault.
not.
But, I would have found it one way or another. But, yeah, so up until that point, I was very much like a timid kid in the sense of, didn't smoke cigarettes, didn't do any of the bad stuff, didn't really even want to drink, anything like that. But
And you and Jake were skinny, little scrawny rumps.
Yeah.
That's what I was
big
saying.
time.
I haven't seen you in so long.
little
I
fucking
mean, we were
rumps.
all kids back then, but you guys were, everybody was skinny.
They were
I
little
remember
rumps. They were little
then.
rumps.
I remember
these guys.
my 7th grade year. My mom finally let me play football for CYO, so for IHM.
Oh, wow.
Should have played weight ball first.
Yeah.
But when they found out my last
I'm surprised
name,
the Woods didn't have you back, Braves, back Wissahick and...
Well, so
yeah,
I wanted
WBF.
to, but my mom would never let me play real contact sports. Thanks, Mom.
Why? Because you're so little.
I think she was just that overbearing, loving mom, where she's like, you can play baseball and soccer. We'll
You were
rock
the
out
youngest?
that. I was her only.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm also the youngest. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so played football, and they were like, oh, we got Chris Wood signing up. This is Sean's brother. They put me in running back one play. That was short-lived.
Take him out.
You almost got my head taken off.
Hey, kid, you know how to punt the ball?
Yeah, literally.
Can you kick?
But yeah, so I don't even know where I was going with that, but essentially, high school is where I made that hard
Just
left.
made some kind of shitty...
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, you didn't even know what you were grabbing. One, you're a 14-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
You're messing around. You're probably having a couple beers and then eating a pill thinking you're going to get...
Well, this is the
messed
thing.
up,
I
right?
got held back, so I wasn't 14. I was 16.
As a freshman?
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This guy didn't graduate high school, by the way.
It's my life.
Yeah, I left Roman for. I didn't do my senior year. I went to the military instead of doing my senior year.
Okay.
So,
But yeah, so I got held back at St. Mary's, and I was already birthdays in October, so I was already the oldest in my class. Got held back per request from my mom. Thanks, Mom. And then, essentially, I was literally that kid. I was driving as a freshman.
Damn, you were 16 as a freshman. I was 17 jumping out of airplanes in an army. Dude.
But that's a little different, right? Like we're saying, all right, 14 and 16 are quite different. It's
a big difference.
Yeah, kind of what's going down, right? When you're 16, a little bit, but you don't know to the magnitude of where it's going to end up.
I also didn't know that, I did. Once I started getting sick, on a daily basis when I didn't have it, I knew that something was seriously off.
And that's a daily
But
feeling
I
you
thought,
had.
oh yeah.
Oh, shit.
But
Were
I
you
didn't
working?
know. No. Not
How
on
you-
the books. I was robbing the people closest to me,
So
essentially.
you were stealing from family members
Yeah.
and shit. Borrowing money, stupid shit.
Trading
Yeah.
and whatever you could
Selling
do.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just it got progressively
Well,
worse.
you probably couldn't even if you weren't working at that time, you're not going to hold a job down anyway, right? It's like
No, but I also sports took up the majority of my life,
Sure.
right? So
you're a kid,
it
really.
was
Still
so
at
much.
16, yeah.
It was so much, and my mom, really anyone's parents back then, they never would have thought we were doing what we were doing.
No,
They were
very naive.
I look back at
Well, they were
the
probably
high
all
school
doing it
kids.
20 short years earlier, but honestly,
Yeah.
it was just different. Nobody kept tabs on where we were at, what we were doing. It was
Well, you also didn't have to.
yeah,
really.
you just simply did not. So you could whatever you did on your time when you left the door. It's that never came home with you anyway. I mean, you came home a little banged up. Your folks may know, but it's to the extent.
Well, that's the thing.
No way.
I would come home banged up from a keg party, whatever the
Sure.
case was, but they didn't know what was really going
Yeah.
on, right? At the end of the day, I could always just say I was drinking and smoking.
Always.
Really, what I was doing was the 30s and all that other stuff. So,
But how the hell would someone know that as a parent? I mean, you're a parent now.
Unless
and I'm
they knew-
a parent,
unless
you're
they
a parent,
knew, yeah.
I guess you think you would know right away. That
Most of your
seems to
friends,
me
most
that,
of your friends didn't even know that.
no,
Most
back then they
the
had no
freshmen
clue.
and shit had no clue.
They had no idea. It wasn't until junior year until they were "We'll just fucked up," and I'm sure
Yeah.
parents were "Yo, we're gonna need you to stay away from
Yeah,
him."
don't
he's up
invite
to
him
no-
over to the house
yeah.
anymore.
because it's so how long does it take and I know people many with substance abuse problems, but I never really ask, right? Because it's a touchy subject. How long and quickly does it get its hooks into you to the point where you're actually getting sick? You said the next day and stuff
I think so. It happened quicker than I thought, but it definitely doesn't happen overnight.
your body could
Yeah.
a perk 30 at 16 years old.
I think after a month straight,
Well, back
you're
then
in
they
a
were
real bad spot.
Back then they were bananas and shit, right? The yellow
Anything you
perks
get your
and all
hands
that
on,
stuff.
yeah. But yeah, so Vike 5s, Vike 7.5s, but eventually the 30s, the tail end of the Oxy 80s. I mean, it was a great time, right? But I didn't know at the hindsight's 2020. It was a horrible time,
But
but
then when they banned the oxys and the dudes that were addicted to those, they were selling them for what, $100 a fuck for an 80?
yeah.
It's insanity.
Even nowadays, right? Like, not to like completely derail us, but I think even the Perk 30s, I have buddies that are still struggling, right? And I'm like, what are you even paying for these things? And they're like telling me this egregious price for like $60 a pill. And I'm like,
and one don't do the trick. You need 4, 5, 6.
That's why so many people go to heroin.
Yeah, at some point you got to make a financial decision,
because
right?
it's
You know
cheaper,
about financial decisions,
cheaper,
right?
It's cheaper to go from paying all that money for the pills, and which you've built a tolerance up to. So like one pill, $60. There's dudes banging 30 pills a day. Do the fucking math. You can't afford it.
Now,
so
the
a
scary
bag
part
of heroin,
but that was when
$10.
that's when the heroin was heroin. Now it's
everything.
fentanyl and xylazine, right? So it's like, God forbid if I were to pick up today after being sober for like 10 years,
You would
right?
overdose.
It's not like I'm trying to have like the thought would be like, oh, let's just have a good time. It's like, no, like you could die today,
Which is just, I mean, I
not
have
the same
zero,
shit.
I
It's just
got
not-
zero experience.
So
it's just not the same.
Put it this way. Put it this way. The weed that was in high school, right, was just like dirt weed, right? Now it's like fucking pure gas.
Yeah.
So like if you're like, oh yeah, or if you're like, say like, one of your aunts was like, oh, I smoked weed in the 70s, like, oh, let me take a puff. They're gonna be like fucking walking like a fucking zombie or this shit.
Down for the count.
Yeah. So I guess this new, wait, how do you step, in high school did you start the heroin stuff?
No.
Oh, like how does that transition happen? And this is crazy to me that you're eating pills, you're having beers.
Were you getting scripts and shit?
No, I got one or two, but it's because I faked an injury and at Roman told them that I blew my knee out.
Yeah.
I was not hurt at all. Played an
into an
entire
air
So you
cast
started
on.
to like making shit up.
I mean, I
completely.
played a whole year, my varsity season for soccer. If you've ever seen like the big metal braces, I played that whole year like that, faking completely the entire thing,
just so you
just
can
to get a surgery, just to get a script.
Oh, you even went under the knife to do it.
Yeah. The best part is I woke up and the doctor
Chris,
was
this
like,
is insane.
the best part is the doctor at Rothman was like, yeah, so we got in there. It was a slight tear, so we just shaved it back a little bit. And I'm like, no, you
He
didn't.
didn't do shit.
You didn't.
He just got that insurance company for money.
And then it didn't work. I didn't get what I wanted, right? They gave me they gave me a prescription for the pain post-op. But
I was just going to say, I just got done Rothman a month ago, and I didn't get any goods. Not that I would be taking
different
them anyway,
time.
but yeah.
They're more aware of a lot of this stuff, too.
I would
right?
imagine, yeah.
Back
Back then
like,
there was doctor shopping and all that shit too.
And you'd be surprised the second you say, like, hey, I just got a surgery, 8 out of 10 people were like, what kind of pills they give you? I'm like, why the fuck do you care? Well, number one, but it's, I guess it's obviously a big deal. But so you faked an injury, which is insane in itself. So this is going to get good, obviously.
I told my mom that like probably 2 months ago when she like heard one of my podcasts. And she was like, you did what? I'm like, yeah, I did.
So we went to some great lengths to start. And
Makes
then,
you do devious things.
Yeah.
But you graduated high school now, right?
Barely.
You got out of there?
Barely. Thank God for, I won't say their names because I think very highly of the people that are still there, but thank God for some of the people that like kind of pushed me through because I was an athlete.
Sure.
Because if it wasn't for that, like I absolutely would have failed out.
Yeah.
Now, were you like a disciplinary problem?
By default, not like because I was
Just
like a
coming
class
late,
clown
doing
or anything
stupid
like
shit.
that. It was like, I was
Going to the
sleeping in
bathroom too
class. I
much.
was, smoking cigs outside. I was, shirt on top. Like Roman.
You're just,
they don't-
Roman. You're
I wasn't
just
wearing
kind of
the
feeding your,
GBXs, yeah.
But you're not a jerk like coming in, you're probably moody, I'm sure, as hell, obviously, with the addiction up and down. So you get out of high school, a couple of the powers, and we all graduated high school and kind of, Roman, that's a great place, right? Like, I mean, there's some really good people.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, but I mean,
They consider me alumni now, so I donate
he
money
is
every
alumni.
year.
Yeah, but, so he's alumni.
They put
You're
my name in a
honorary
magazine.
alumni.
You're getting the envelope.
But either
every
way,
yeah.
I can imagine because when we graduated, like at that time, you're kind of on your own. Like senior year, it's like our parents weren't giving us much guidance back then. It's just kind of like, you want to go to college, take student loans out. You don't want to go to college, go in the army or get a trade. Right?
Parenting was wildly different.
Wildly different,
Looking
right?
back on like how my parents parented my brothers who were older than me and then parented me, and I'm like, oh my fucking God.
It's crazy to
What
think
the
about.
fuck
So you're
were you doing?
So as
how
you
was
got-
I not a drug addict?
Yeah.
That's what I'm like. How was I not a fucking drug addict?
Yeah. Well, I guess my question goes then.
I think the way I believe it is like, like you're either born with it or you're not. Like you either have like a severely like addictive personality or you don't, right? And like maybe if I never got introduced to the opiates, it would have never happened. But like, can't change the past like I did, and I found like that magic elixir where I was like, if I can just feel like this every day, we'll be good, right? But up until that point, like there was nothing in the cards that like
It's strange
I was
that you
going
went
to turn
right.
out that
It's
way.
strange that you went right to it. Like you went,
Yeah.
you like went just right to
Do
fucking
you? So
opiates.
you work for Recovery Centers of America. Is that a typical kind of path? Look, you said you were going to find it anyway, right? Like your personality would have figured out and seeked out how to almost self-destruct yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, and trust me, we all battle demons and have addictive personalities, and you got to kind of. But like with prescription meds, you don't make the decisions anymore, right? Like you're out. Like you basically need them to survive anyway.
Yeah.
Or your body goes through complete withdrawal and you're doing
Yeah.
crazy shit. So how do you get out of high school? Now you're on an island, right? You're out of high school. You have nobody looking out for you. You're probably not going to play collegiate sports, right? Prospects on jobs are I'm sure, next to none.
So much like I feel, and I'm going to speak for myself, but I feel like a lot of people in our neighborhood probably have the opportunity that I did, right? So I was kind of told where I was going to go work.
Okay.
So I went and I started working for the city of Philadelphia. I was a trash man, you know what I mean? But like out of high school, like it was,
They're making,
I was living.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
good money.
But yeah, essentially I
You
got a
weren't
job.
driving because you weren't getting no fucking.
I definitely
clean-
wasn't
clean
driving.
Cup. You couldn't produce a clean cup.
No.
You weren't driving.
Although like they never really on the front end broke my balls like that.
Wow.
Right. But like they did definitely, like when I needed help, like they were there and like they sent me away.
The city did.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Wow.
Yeah. It's if you're, as long as you don't get caught, you're good.
Yeah. If you say, "Hey, I need help," they'll help you. If they say, "We
You're
need to give
crash
you help,"
on a
you're
job
fucked.
or something, or yeah, okay, understood.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, so I got told where I was going to go work after I tried to, be a man and like find my own job. So like at first I tried,
How'd you get into that?
auto repair, and I started doing like other stuff. But
How'd you get into the sanitation?
so actually my neighbor babysat my mother growing up, and he was going to be my supervisor.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it was like the fast track program, right?
Hey, I
And,
need you. Come.
yeah, so it started off as like a summer program. I was like stationed at Hunting Park, and I was just picking up trash
In terrible neighborhoods.
in terrible neighborhoods until eventually like I made my way to being on the back of a truck, and then I made my way to like being in Indiana, and then that just like kind of really
To where?
like being in Indiana.
Okay.
So like down in Kansas.
Oh, P. I understand. Okay.
Be in Indiana.
Yeah.
So like there's rec centers everywhere down
Oh, yeah.
there.
Oh,
The
yeah.
department that I was in was still technically Parks and
Technically,
Rec.
what the Badlands for people that don't
Yeah.
know the Philadelphia area. Sure.
So we would go like halfway up the boulevard, every
Oh, so you
rec
switched
center.
from sanitation to Parks and Rec.
So I was always like Parks and Rec, but like it was just easier to say like, hey, sanitation, because like if anybody saw me, I was in the back of a truck.
Okay.
And they're like, you work for Parks and Rec, but you're on a trash truck?
So they
I'm
had
like,
their own sanitation type thing.
all of the rec centers. Yep. So like Houston.
So that's all you
have-
did was
yep.
rec centers and shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then like weekend work. So Hunting Park, if you've ever driven on the boulevard and seen all the cars parked up out there on a weekend, like they're not just like all at the softball games. They're just partying. The best part is that like when they're done the party, they just
Throw the shit.
leave it.
Yeah,
Wherever
it's
they're
terrible.
done the drink or the plate, it goes right where they're standing. So like we would come back every single day and make
And
sure
if you're
that
lucky,
you could
they
see the
throw.
grass.
If you're
again.
lucky, they throw it in the case of the beer.
Or put it in a pile for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. But yeah, that's the norm there.
There's metal trash cans fucking everywhere, and they throw it in there.
Yeah.
But how does that course?
So-
So your job down there, you're front row and center of like these areas where people are obviously using, getting high. There's hot spots, but you're taken as you're working, but not there yet to that extreme.
I mean, furthermore, I wasn't even buying anything down there yet. Like I still didn't even really know. Like I knew what I was doing, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Now you were
Like, I didn't-
seeing.
I didn't know where I was headed really.
Yeah,
Being
really.
down there, you were seeing the worst of the worst. So in your
Yeah.
mind, were you like, I ain't that bad?
Yeah.
Like it may have had an adverse effect where you were like, man, I ain't that bad.
Feel like I'm a
Like,
better.
that's
I'm better.
Even
That's
up
fucking
until the
bad.
point where I was in like rehab for like the second, third, fourth time, I was like, I mean, I'm bad, but I'm not.
You
like
still
him.
kind of measure
Yeah.
stick to yourself to other people
Until
which
it got to
horrible,
a point
yeah.
where I sat in front of a therapist that actually like got my mindset and the distortion that I was living in, where they were like, Chris, you're sicker than all these people. You're in here
Wow.
for your 9th, 10th time saying that you're not as bad as these people.
Like your
How
family.
many,
what are you
yeah,
looking
there's
for?
not going to be many
How
more
many
trips
times are we gonna
here.
do
Yeah,
this?
Like
right.
your family was on their last fucking straw with you. Like you're fucking bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time I would go to treatment, like my mom would swipe a credit card to put me in. Right?
that when
Because
it
even
hit
though I
you?
had insurance, you still have to pay a copay, just like a
Is
like a
that when
hospital
it,
stay.
is
Yeah.
that when it hit you? Like when that therapist like said like you're bad. Like is that what? Like,
Yeah.
Is that what it took?
Yeah, that definitely was like one of the first times where I was like, "Fuck, what am I gonna do?"
Yeah.
And then I still went to treatment a number of times after that too. But
Now, and you're in a position where you're basically pointing out to people like, yo, I was bad, but
Yeah.
you're fucking bad.
Can I ask the first time you went to treatment, like what occurred, or was it just like you were sick and tired of being sick and tired? Was it a family decision, or was it like, man, I did some dumb shit, I got to get into treatment?
yeah, so I was 19. I was what? Like I said, I was 16 as a freshman, so I was like a couple months out of Roman.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I had like woke up one day, could not figure out how to get a couple dollars. So I was withdrawing. I was feeling sick. I essentially wrote out like this like huge summary to my mom and just wanted to see what it would look like if I were to get honest about having, a drug problem. And I was like so emotional, like shaking, like crying type deal, where something made me hit the button. And she had me in treatment like, in a day or so. But when I went to rehab, as soon as I got there, I was like, I'm not like any of these people, right? So
They put you on
Now you
subs.
start second
Yeah.
guessing
Subs.
yourself.
yeah, well, it was like when I was in the detox process, like I felt fine, right? I was like talking to people, I was relating with people, whatever. As soon as I woke up to the first day sober, and they didn't give me any medication, I was like, you got to get me the fuck out of here.
Was that the first time you encountered Suboxone?
No. We
So
had
you were
Suboxone.
you
we
were
had
utili-
Suboxone in high school.
You were utilizing
Yeah.
that to not get sick
yeah
before.
Yep. Yeah.
Holy
He's
shit.
he's looking like, what the fuck's Suboxone?
No, I mean,
Explain-
look, it's
explain-
scary, right?
explain
Because
to
I'm
him.
thinking, okay, you go to you end up in a rehab center, so what they're weaning you off with like some medication, I guess, from what you previously were.
Yeah.
And then when you have to go cold turkey, your body's saying, well, we can't do this. We're going to just rebel against you because it's dependent on the drug now.
Yeah, essentially.
And then your mind's got to go ape shit.
So that's the issue that I firmly believe in, right? That maybe not a lot of people agree with. And like, I can say because it's my own lived experience and it is what it is, but there's a lot of people in my space that I work for that might disagree with it. My truth is that like the drink and the drug is really not the issue, right? Like it's like if I had a perk 30, I was usually okay.
Yeah.
Right. It's when I wake up day 3, 4, 5 sober where I start to go nuts, right? So like that would insinuate that like sobriety is my problem, not the drink or the drug.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So if I can
Interesting.
figure out like a fix for the sobriety issue, you know what I mean? Then we can figure out a way to live.
So that's contradicting to what a lot of recovering or professionals think in that space.
it's
right?
kind of it's on par to an extent, right? But I think a lot of times now, especially with everything that's going on in Kensington and stuff like that, like we definitely the gold standard of treatment is like harm reduction, right? So like keeping somebody alive, whether it be Suboxone, methadone, some sort of like medical assisted treatment. But yeah, I mean, the way that I got sober was like, it's not if you're going to get high again, it's when, right? So how do we keep you stay stopped?
Now, how much trauma was? I mean, you don't have to get into specifics, but I'm guessing there was a lot of trauma in your life when you were young for you to not want to be sober,
Not really.
because then you're probably thinking like sober, you have to deal with your fucking problems and emotional issues,
And that wasn't
all
the
that
case
stuff.
for you. I was
So
going
you
to say,
didn't
because when
have-
I knew you, you were nice,
Yeah.
good
So you didn't have
kid,
you
like
didn't
not
have a lot of
punk,
trauma
not
then.
like hanging around on the corners all the time. Like,
No.
for sure.
So
And-
that's the other contradiction, right? Where it's like I had some stuff, don't get me wrong, right?
Sure.
But not like anything that's different than either one of you two.
Absolutely.
But even like the stuff that we all went through, like there was some stuff from our early childhood where I was like, that's the one thing that nobody's ever going to know, right? And it's like, turns out we're not special, right?
Yeah, right.
Like,
We all got some.
kids go through some weird shit.
Sure.
It's very much normal. But at the end of the day, like that was like the one or two gleaming things. Other than that, like, yes, trauma is a very real thing.
Sure.
And people go through it and stuff like that. It's just not part of my story.
That's usually why people don't want to be sober, though.
Well, they'll use that as an excuse to
that
get high,
in the sense
right?
of like, well, if you went through this, then and I'm not trying to downplay anybody's trauma, but yeah, I mean, essentially the truth is that even if like we had some serious trauma, it's not the reason why I get
Yeah,
high.
ultimately they're using that as a crutch and an excuse to get high. You did not, which is different, right? So you came from a decent upbringing. You didn't kind of have that traumatic, like, oh, I'm just using this to get high. So you like fully addicted with it, just like came out of nowhere almost.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that's scary as hell. One, being a father, right? Like
Yeah.
to kids, because it's like,
Tell
who
me
the
about
hell
it.
are you
Yeah,
gonna have a
terrifying.
conversation with? And like once it's going on, you're done, right? Like there's no way out.
This episode is brought to you by Downtown Mechanical. Downtown Mechanical is your one-stop shop for all of your HVAC needs, residential and light commercial. Downtown Mechanical specializes in installation of full units, swap outs, repair, service, rooftop units, mini split systems, heat pumps, whatever you need HVAC wise. I personally use them on all of my properties. Matt Rispo is the owner. Great guy. I love working with them. They accept credit cards, free estimates, and they offer financing. You can get a hold of them at downtownmechanicalllc.com or by phone 215-617-3768.
Yeah, so the funny thing is that, like, I actually last night had to speak at the Boy Scouts. And, like, I've spoken in front of, large crowds, important crowds that could care less if I'm there or not, people that are rolling their eyes, whatever. I was so nervous last night because I was speaking to, like, 11 to 17-year-olds. And it's like, what do you say? What do you actually talk about with these? The kids had nothing to ask after I was done talking, but the parents that were in the room were the ones that actually lit up, and they were like, well, what about this?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were talking to yourself?
To your younger self a little bit, or maybe
well, I mentioned that,
yeah.
right? And I was like, hey, listen, I didn't always talk like this or present like this or, really dress like this. When somebody would come into whatever school I was at, they had these same conversations and I was rolling my eyes and we were laughing. But the truth is that this can happen right before your eyes and you have no clue that you're even in it before it happens. I said, if I say anything and you don't take anything away, take away the fact that, like, your parents that are, if they're here, have gone through the situations that I'm currently talking about or alluding to, because we're not being super graphic, feel okay talking to them, right? Because they navigated through it one way or another. There's no reason why you should feel like you can't talk to your parents about this because it's coming one way or another.
Sure.
I don't think the parents really appreciated that, but it's the truth, right? It's like, hey, none of us really wake up one day and we're like, I'm going to ruin my life.
Well,
it's out
as
there.
a parent, you're always thinking not my kid.
Well, especially when you're in a room full of Boy Scouts, right?
I can guarantee your mom thought that.
So the kids are thinking they're 11 to 17, they're Boy Scouts, they got the whole world ahead of them. But there's got to be parents in that room that are obviously worried about it, right? It's just a concerning thing because it seems like it doesn't matter what your surroundings are. You could have a great upbringing, Catholic school, private school, good folks, and you could still get jammed up on this very easily. And in your case, that seems what happened.
My brothers are both Boy Scouts, and my older one, he's dead now, but he was a wild motherfucker, and he was a Boy Scout. It's like, he was a wild dude.
Well, that was the first time I actually heard the Boy Scout creed or code.
What is it?
I don't know. I like the social anxiety kind of kicked on a little bit, and I kind of checked out. But it was very much along the lines.
Did they hold? They hold.
They do this, and then they were talking about being.
They have their
not
little
prepared,
scarves on and
ready,
shit. Right?
Physically fit, mentally, whatever. Kind of like mind, body, spirit at all times.
Sure.
And I was like, this directly ties into, crazy enough, fellas, what helped me recreate my life. It's just called AA. So.
Wow.
It's a good message. It's a good program, Boy Scouts, but it's it has this stigma of I was gonna say nerds. It just has
it does.
I'll
tell you what, they're the guys that know what to do now.
Yeah,
everything with their hands. I mean,
survival.
Yeah,
and
of
course.
course.
My son's always he's sounds interesting, but that's for nerds. And I'm like, you are a fucking nerd.
So they said that about tennis in the '90s. Man, I wish I played tennis. These guys are
I said it last night.
the best athletes.
So I have twin 7-year-olds, my daughters, and they I was getting ready to go to work essentially, and they were like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "I'm going to work." And they're like, "Where?" I was like, "Babe, if I told you, you would not believe me." And they were like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "The Boy Scouts." And she said, "Yeah, okay." And I'm like, "I told you." Yeah. So there is that stigma that surrounds it.
But it's a really good program for kids.
Yeah.
It really is.
So then the parents are asking you all types of questions. That's got to be a pretty intimidating room, I would think, to certainly be in. Like the Boy Scouts, coming from where you came from, looking at a bunch of kind of what you probably think of straight edge kids or kids on the right path.
Yeah.
Thinking oh shit, the stats don't lie. There's somebody in that room that's going to get addicted to some substance, right?
There's some prior Boy Scouts down on Kensington Ave right now nodding the fuck out.
Which is crazy.
Also, don't get me wrong, they were badass. These kids, right?
They're no joke.
I've for some reason I've always been one to not miss much, right? But every single one of them had the switchblades right in their pocket, and I was like,
"Oh wow,
these badass kids, dude."
Man, so I know we talked about the recovery part and how you didn't think you were bad. Is there a coming of Jesus moment or a coming of an aha moment? Shit, this is my ninth stint here. If I get out again, I'm going to die or I'm going to end up in jail. What happens there where you say You know, because a couple of, and we've talked about substance abuse on the show a lot. Like some guys stop drinking, stop smoking, and there's not a reason for it, right? It's just like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I feel like shit. I'm not the best version of myself. Was that the case, or is it just like, I'm going to die?
No, so I think it would be like there was like definitely a moment of clarity, right, where I was always allowed back home. My mom always, you know, being her only son, she wasn't happy about it. But if I wanted to leave treatment and come back home,
but you had a home to go to.
But she locked everything up when you came back after the fourth or fifth time.
It never stopped me. But yeah, you know, again, Mom, not proud of it, but you know, it is what it is. It's my truth. But essentially, it got to the point where I sat my mom down again, and she knew what was coming. I was like, "Hey, Mom, I got to go back." And she's like, "Okay, like, what's the plan?" I'm like, "I'm not coming back. Like, I'm going to a recovery house. I don't really know what that looks like just yet, but like, I can't continue to do this to you because I see what I'm doing. I
Where'd you
leave
go,
treatment. No, I went right to Bucks County,
Ben Salem and shit.
Croydon, even worse. But yeah, like every time I would leave treatment, and this is probably a lot of people's stories where it's like the family has like this overwhelming sense of hope, right? Where it's like, okay, like Christopher means well, he wants to do right, like, you know, yada, yada, yada. Within a number of months, weeks, or however much time, like again, she's at the kitchen table crying because she knows that I'm using again.
The hope fades, and then the pressure on you as the addict has got to be terrible, right? Because you're like, I'm going to let everybody down here, and you probably already know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing you don't know, but you took years off your mom's life.
Absolutely.
I think, you know,
without a doubt.
I mean,
You've
listen,
decreased her longevity of life.
And it's why I won't dive too much into it, right? But like sometimes my wife doesn't really fully understand why I do what I do. But like it's why, like, if there's anything that ever is needed, like I'm there, like tenfold.
Because your mom was there for you when you were just out. Like I mean, she could have very well said, like, you know, this is enough. Like,
yeah,
you just
she could have said like, hey, go to Penn Presby on, you know, whatever street that is on Lehigh, right?
And you ain't ever coming back.
You know, but like she continued to put me in like these private treatment centers, even though, you know, again,
you were lucky to have her
card and max it out.
But that's the interesting part, right? Like it doesn't discriminate if you're poor, if you're wealthy, if you got good folks. If you don't, it's ultimately comes down to you. I guess, is that what you guys preach? Like, you got to look deep inside of you and say, like, do I have the will to live? Do I want to stop hurting the people in my life? And I mean, you really sound like a great father, husband, employee. So I'm like, it's hard for me to see you and say, like, this guy's bumping H in, you know, the Badlands is like crazy to me, right?
So it never really was down there like that. Right?
Okay, good.
But
good.
by all means, like I definitely had that persona, right? Sure. Anybody would have asked about me, that's probably what
it's just what we think, right?
When did you switch to heroin?
So it was very short lived, thank God. But it was between my 9th and 10th treatment center. It was only like 2 months. So I hung on to the 30s for much longer than the
so
majority
you stay
of people.
until you can just physically cannot, or you just can't afford it anymore. You get say, oh, I need to get high, and this is the only alternative.
It was really, nobody had them in the neighborhood, right? I only had a certain amount of money. Couldn't get them anywhere locally. You got to think, whatever car I was driving, I only had a certain amount of gas, so I couldn't like figure out where I was going to go. I was with somebody one day that had it, and it was like, the opportunity was there, and I was like, okay, today's the day.
You sniffed it?
Yeah.
This sounds freaking hopeless, I must say, dude.
Did you ever intravenous?
No, thank God. Yeah. Which I do believe that if I would have like started to go down that route, I would have probably died.
I think Jake was in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
He just sniffed it.
Ooh, that's terrifying. All right, so as you're doing that, and then when was like after that, you said it's short-lived because your body has to feel like it's going to go.
Well, I think the last time I walked into treatment, I was like 140 pounds. You know, my ears were the same size as they are now. So, like, I looked very, like, out of the norm, you know. But, yeah, I sat my mom down, and I was like, listen, I can't continue to do this to you. More, like, most importantly, there was a really structured recovery house in the area in Croydon that they had been telling me to go to for years. Like, the suggestion's been the same the entire time. I finally was broken enough to, you know, take the suggestion. And
there's so many like up there, like halfway houses. Like
there's a lot of shitty ones too.
With them. Like Lower Bucks County has a lot. Yeah. It seems like.
Oh yeah, Lower Bucks County, Florida,
which it's like
Jersey now.
Which it's not far from like where the people were, and then like you're going right up there, and it's like you're a bus ride away. You're literally one bus token away from going to get high to where you used to get high. That's what's like. I never understood that.
Were you with your wife at that point in time, or no?
Well, yes and no. But like to the extent of like me being like a good person, no.
So you met her when you were using?
Yes and no. So I don't actually say this on my podcast, but if anybody ever finds it, like, more power to you. But we actually met in rehab.
Okay, which is, again, that's not a
Never
bad thing,
suggested.
Right? Oh, I was going to say, is that like a big no-no kind of deal?
It's
Okay.
like 2 dead batteries. You know, you never really been able to get.
You're
a
just
jump from
one
there.
waiting to drag the other one down, more or less.
But essentially, people think that it's a success story, but it's not. Like, she actually took the suggestions when I met her. She went to a recovery house, started to recreate her life. I went right back to the life I was living. And
Where's she from?
Havertown.
Okay.
Delco. So, you know, there's that, right?
Sure.
So buying a house with a girl from Delco is a whole, you know, we'll talk about that. But yeah, so essentially she stayed
How are you
sober.
not in
I didn't.
Delco? How do you not live in Delco?
That was my one thing. We're not doing that. But it's weird, right? Because obviously we're on a podcast about real estate, essentially. You talked about, like, oh, there's a ton of them up there in Levittown. There's a ton around here. But I remember the first taste I actually had heard about adultism or adulthood was like when the neighbors were like, I don't want this recovery house next to my house.
Sure. Yeah.
For multiple reasons, and I absolutely understand it.
It's
right?
understandable.
It's the stigma.
You get a lot
right?
of press and pushback on that.
Oh,
when
yeah.
they try to pop them in the city near parks or schools or anything.
It's the same with houses that help, like, interact.
And we work in the
Like
commercial
houses-
real estate space. Sometimes the amount of money in these treatment centers are freaking insane. Obviously, the criminal aspect of it, the insurance fraud, all the nonsense in it. It's really crazy how they prey on the addict portion.
But
It's
neighbors,
insane.
like,
Oh, yeah.
So you know it, obviously. You see that. I see that from the commercial side of things and the insurance and the finance side of things. I'm like, wow, this is so sad.
To touch on your point about, like, neighbors being unhappy with it, like, I remember the street that I grew up on, somebody sold their house and they sold it to Interact. Interact helps people, like adults that really can't take care of themselves, whether it's mental issues, physical issues, both. And those people really need help, right? They really do. I remember the neighbors being up in arms about it, right? Now, fast forward, I live on that street that I grew up on, right? And I live closer to that house. It's still there. I have zero issues with the clients that live there. They're always like, hey, like the one guy, he can't talk. He's deaf. He's mute. He like makes a noise and like waves to my kids. There's been a few that have lived there and then died. They're always like friendly. It's the employees that like come, they're smoking cigarettes, throwing it right on the ground, like doing stupid shit because it's their place of employment. It's not their house.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
Like, getting picked up at, the change of shift is at 11 and it's loud, like a radio banging. It's like, and when you're trying to put down a little kid and you got a radio banging, you're like, what the fuck? I'm trying to like fight people. So that's like, I understand like now why those neighbors back then fought it. I was a kid. I didn't understand it, but I get it.
No, and I mean, and the recovery houses, like, so you're talking about the staff, right?
Yes,
so
the
recovery
staff.
houses essentially, historically, never had staff. They were self-governed, essentially, right? So if it was someone like me that had been there for a number of months, you get made into like a house manager, right? And then you kind of oversee and make sure that everything runs smoothly.
So if
But
you get
yeah,
a
the
shithead
stigma-
house manager,
Yeah.
then you got problems.
Yeah, or like they would run a shitty house, right? And it's like it was a free for all,
And you're pissing
right?
neighbors off.
But like the house that I got sober at, like you weren't allowed to even like hang out front of the house. Like you weren't allowed to smoke a cigarette out front of the house. If there was a snowstorm, it was like our obligation, and rightly so, right? With all the damage that we had caused, to go shove the neighbor's like walkway.
Sure.
It was like really like a whole vibe of like we're gonna start to recreate our lives and do stuff that we don't want to do. In the sense of like this is all stuff that we learned in grade school that we just disregarded. So yeah. Big thing was like respect.
Yeah.
Never moved the needle much. They were like, no, not in my backyard. And we're like, we'll get it. Just give us 6 months. You'll like us.
Yeah.
So when you're in there and you're getting clean, so it's obviously got to be something from within that says like, I got to dig that out of this. But like, does the strictness of the house help?
For me, it
it's
did.
different for you. It
Yeah.
did. Right?
If I would have went to like a
if
house
you had
where they
access to
only
anybody,
cared,
like the inmates ran the
Yeah.
prison, you would just be like, okay, I'll run
and there's
it.
a lot of those houses out there that strictly only care about like the money aspect of it, right? Like if your rent's paid and you're not doing a thing for your recovery, like you're welcome to stay. Like that was not like
For a
I
lot of
didn't
people, it's
have-
probably a better place than where they're coming from anyway, right?
if they stay.
If they
Yeah,
stay.
but a lot of times, like at the place I went to, like those people got weeded out really quick.
Okay.
Furthermore, like your rent could have been paid, but if you weren't doing right by your own recovery and like taking action to get better, you were asked to leave anyway.
But there's some of these places that are like revolving doors, and they're for profit, and they kind of want people coming back.
Yeah.
You know
At the end of the day,
it's like it's a for profit thing, and you have
yeah.
really ill intentioned people, not really giving these people the full help because they want them to come back,
Yeah.
and they want them to get that insurance money again and again.
And you said, and he mentioned something earlier. You said like it's a no, I guess, through the program to kind of like link up with other people in the program. I kind of see that as like maybe it could be a positive thing. No, like,
I mean, yeah,
it's
with
two
men-
people that
men
are
with
fighting
yeah.
for their lives with the same common goal ultimately,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, yeah, I'm a good person. I got to get out of this, and this person's helped me get out. But I obviously understand that.
Yeah.
The counter argument is like that could also drag you down.
the two dead batteries thing is
Yeah.
a perfect
So,
analogy.
so like men with the men, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely encouraged, right? Like a sick guy like myself, right? Like put yourself back in like the high school mind frame, because that's exactly where I was. At
You're
the
going to
time.
bullshit me. I'm going to bullshit you, and ultimately we're going to end up in the same damn spot.
And essentially, I'm just saying whatever because like you have something that I want.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what it was early on. But
Even with your wife as well, or is that?
yeah, I mean, but listen, she was recreating her life. I went back to drinking, and then eventually I went back to rehab, and went to a recovery house, and then that's when everything kind of like really
Drinking
started to
gateway
shift.
for you? Like anytime you had a drink, it's like you need it more.
Yeah. I mean,
you
I can't
just
tell
go
you.
hard at everything.
Yeah, I mean, how many
just
times did I
dive
go
in
down
there.
on a relapse, like showing up at CJ and X, like thinking that like all my boys from Rome were there, and I just wanted to flash the paycheck that I had for the last week,
Yeah.
and trying to like convince them. Nobody cared.
Nobody gave a
right?
shit,
I was
right?
like, oh, rounds on me, and it's like, no, I'm still broke. I should have just got high. What am I doing? But yeah,
And then so you guys, you're out of the recovery center. You're doing well. You're making progress. What was the big first kind of like step? Like, oh shit, there's some light ahead of this tunnel here. Because you're a father of 7-year-old daughters.
Yeah.
At this point. Like, I mean, this is a major.
So I
turnaround.
left the city of Philadelphia, or like Parks and Rec, and I could have went back to that job, but essentially it just was not conducive to my recovery.
How old were you?
23.
Okay.
Damn, you're young, going through a lot of crap, dude.
But blessed that I got sober when I did, right? Because
Earlier the better.
Yeah.
You think?
How long have you been sober?
I mean,
now?
you're Dalton, right?
Yeah.
So like Murph. Well, we just lost Murph.
We lost Ryan
right?
Murphy. He was Markle Street guy, great guy. And again,
funniest dude I
CJ and
ever
X
met.
that you said, like we played Dart League every Thursday night. Rye was a home.
He was an opiate kid, right?
Yeah.
But you should, and this is none of my business, right? But I see when guys, and I tend to bar for a long time, right? So I see when guys just start drinking, then they start using. But to your point, the guy that gets jammed up and now he's buying rounds, he's doing pills, and I'm like, you of all people, you're the one. And Rye unfortunately became that because he's a really good kid. But year after year, we'd play the darts, and we'd stop doing activities together, but only play darts. And it's like his moods would change. He would get argumentative, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Here we go. Right? Because I've seen it. I have people in my life with substance abuse problems, and I've seen it behind the bar plenty of times.
Yeah.
So I saw where he was heading. But again, you always look at a guy like that. He's fine. He'll get out. He's got a good family.
Well,
That's a terrible thought
and
process.
I said this to his mom, and I think I've said this to his sister a number of times. It's like Murph was such a funny guy, where it's like we always were hoping that he was, because he was like hilarious.
Yeah, he made everybody laugh in the room.
And even if he was in a bad way, he'd make you laugh, and you were just like, it ain't that deep.
And the whole
And it was
time
that
he's
deep.
suffering,
Yeah.
looking for
Yeah.
his next fix. Yeah. It's just sad because Denise, all those guys are great people.
Yeah.
That's when it started happening more recently. Billy Boone, and guys like this, like guys our age, can't happen to us. We're just partying, right? We're having fun. We're hooking up. We're doing this, and then it's like, well, dude, you're 40. You're losing everything. You're kind of falling out,
Yeah.
and then you're dead, which is the craziest part. So Nick, you didn't have.
There's so many-
issues, but
there's so
no
many-
drinking. We both stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Because of like, as you get older and you become a father and your goals kind of like change, it's like,
You guys both stopped drinking.
yeah.
You didn't call me?
No. Yeah, well, we didn't know. It was kind of, it was
haven't-
kind of one of those things. It's
Yeah.
been a couple years.
I'm coming up on this summer. It'll be 2 years.
I'm not giving it up.
Could have got you a nice little mental health stay.
Yeah, right.
Who knows what I'm doing? But I'm kind of the same way. Even all of us, it's like I have that same kind of personality. If I'm
Yeah.
going in on something, I'm going in. Like I'm going head first, 100 miles an hour, and then by the time you come up for air, and you're like, wait, my goals got kind of scrambled here, right? So even in real estate, we do the same thing. He's a pit bull in real estate, so it's like if you're going 150 miles an hour, but
Well, you clearly have Seeing the photos of you when you're younger, you've gone.
You did have big years now that I saw one of those past photos of you.
You've immersed yourself into the gym because you're fucking yoked now.
Yeah.
Like,
Shout out Philly Gaines. Shout out Johnny Bennett. Because I had no clue what I was doing. But
does that addicted? And now, can I ask this? And I've worked out with plenty of guys that were former users, drug addicts, drinkers. The addictive personality just goes right into the gym, correct?
There's definitely been times for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like everybody that does make it out, which is great, is absolutely shredded beyond belief, and they're in the gym all the time.
is that what you focus your energy on now? Is that your outlet?
That's like my biggest outlet right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Is the gym just
it keeps it very even keeled.
I crack up like you're always fucking with. I don't even know the dude. You're always
Steve
fucking
Brown.
with
Yeah,
this
it's
dude on Instagram. Like, it's
what
fucking
about,
hilarious.
Now let me ask you this, and if this is too hot, don't answer. But like that world, there's some characters in that world, right? That bodybuilding, lifting world, that came from kind of the same spots that have access to illegal drugs, right? That, that may not get you high, but they're still.
You're talking about like the steroids and
steroids and everything like that. So that kind of that's a correlation.
Do you see a lot of that? Do you see a lot of that, like guys that were
like crossover with it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think a big part of like the whole steroid thing.
It's
right?
still way better.
And
to
people,
use it
is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. In the actual like 12-step like AA NA community, right? Like there's very like strong opinions on it, and like whatever, it's their own prerogative. The truth of the matter is that like a lot of these people want to like go about it a certain way, right? And like people like ask about steroids, they ask about this stuff, and it's like, yo, why don't you give yourself a chance to peak in the gym first? Because like you can, there's a ton of people that are on, steroids or whatever, and you'd have no clue because you're like, I had no idea. Like you better figure out where you're getting that from. And then there's people that like are absolutely shredded that are 100% natural, and you're like, how's that going on?
Yeah.
Every old dude I see in the gym now, I'm like, that dude's on T. Like
every
fucking old dude that I see, I'm like, gotta be on T.
Yeah.
Like there's no fucking way.
There's
no
still
fucking
natural.
way. Yeah.
I'm all natural, but maybe after this episode, it sounds pretty appealing.
Like I asked a dude the other day in the gym, and Steele's like, you just randomly walked up to that old dude. Like, what'd you tell him? Like, man, you look great. I'm like, exactly. I'm like, sir, if you don't mind, like, how old are you? And he was like, I'm 62. I'm like, you look fucking amazing. Like, you are fucking, like, this dude kills it, bro. He fucking kills it in the gym. And he's doing fucking dips and shit. And at 62, he's doing weighted dips, bro.
Are you going to LA and or?
No, up here at in Conshohocken. And I'm like, this dude's impressive. I'm like, sir, I got to ask you, like, what supplements are you taking? And he was like, nothing. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you either have like super genes.
It could be genetics.
He might.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it could be the genes. So you found refuge in the gym, right? Like, I mean, I feel like a lot of guys do when they kind of get out. And I've seen like their personalities. I'm like, damn, man, they must have been such a user by the way they work in the gym because they go and go and go and never stop. And they're so disciplined, which makes me only scratch my head. Like, how the hell is somebody so disciplined was so reckless? But I guess they were disciplined with their recklessness.
We were definitely disciplined in a different way. Yeah,
your goal was to get high, and you were doing it.
It was almost like militant at a certain point, right?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
You wake up and you go, right? And it's like I wouldn't even start my day until I could actually scheme whatever I had to scheme.
Where you're getting the money, where you're getting the.
I've always said like the energy that addicts put into
it's incredible.
Getting high and getting money to get high. If they were able to get clean and channel that same hyper focus, they would be a millionaire. They'd be instantaneous business fucking savants. If you could channel, you could just take that fucking focus of getting high and getting money to get high into something positive, you could be the best.
But I think the whole point of this one is you kind of have done that, right? So you got out. You've figured it out. You and your wife got clean and then got married. And then
got pregnant, then got married.
Got pregnant,
right?
then
so
got married.
made the families real proud when she found out that she
amazing.
That she was pregnant with
and
a
then
kid
you saw the
from
ultrasound. You're like,
house.
hey, I got some more news for you. There's the two of them.
Can I ask you an honest question though? When you have her pregnant and you're thinking about, hey, this is going to be like, is there thought back in your mind like I could monumentally screw this thing up? Or at that time,
absolutely.
Were you healed to the point where
we were definitely in a much better place.
Much
at that
better
point.
place, right?
And like I can't just like give it all to the gym, right? Like I got to pay homage with like the guys in my life.
Guys
in
that
AA,
got
right?
you,
Like
sure.
AA like absolutely saved my life. But yeah, I mean, essentially that thought is definitely there, especially whether he knows it or not. Like her brother, very successful individual, in business and personally and professionally. But he was like very much a realistic person with like, this is a very real thing you guys are about to embark on, and like, what are you guys about to do?
Yeah.
Now, like, you know my story with like my dad, right? So
Sure.
like I didn't really have a father figure in my life in the sense of, and even if I was looking up the old Jackie Woods, it would be like, I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
I'll find a local person in the area and just kind of like move in with them, and we'll just call it a day. Yeah, so like we had to hit the drawing board essentially.
So your
And,
dad was just Rolling Stone.
he was the man. Yeah, nobody
He was
ever
the
gave
man.
him
He's a
shit.
good guy. He was like one of all of our like first coaches and
Yeah.
stuff. Back then he was cool as shit, but you know, there was guys to us
Yeah.
when we're kids. It ain't so cool. It probably if
Yeah.
it's, you know, which,
How long have you been sober now?
Just had 10 years.
Good.
damn, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And how old are you?
33.
That's great.
Yeah.
This guy's lived 50 freaking lives already.
Now
so-
what was
33.
What was
years
the-
sober? Congrats.
what was the home buying process like when?
Well, you're getting
I'm
married, having a kid. Yeah, what
I'm
happened
guessing
now?
you just got pregnant and your wife was like, "Yeah, we need a fucking house."
Yeah, so we weren't even there, although it was much easier than we expected to like go through the whole home buying process. And once we got looped in with like, everybody's got a family friend, right? So we went through a family friend that was a lender. That process was fairly easy, although aggressive and a lot. Very easy.
Yeah, I need this, and
Yeah.
this. Right? Yeah.
And then they would ask for it again. You're like,
Yeah.
again? And
Yeah.
you're like, okay. But yeah, no, essentially when like all this came to fruition, we made the decision to move back into my mom's house in Germantown, to the third floor with no air, no heat, right? With twin girls.
Jesus Christ.
So we lasted 3 months.
Sure.
She was like, we're out.
Yeah.
And then she found us an apartment in Conshohocken on 2nd Street, which was absolutely, I'm not going to ever not say this because it's the truth, worse than my mom's house. But it was ours.
Sure.
So at that point, she had been working for Recovery Centers of America. I was working for a different place. That whole thing sort of like we just hit the ground running, right? She had to pick up a second job. She was serving. I was working every bit of overtime that I could.
So when you get out of the program, they'll help you. They'll hook you up working there as like an ambassador.
Oh no, you had to work while you were there.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't even have jobs or anything like that. Yeah. So the recovery house was like its own thing. It was just a recovery house.
Understood. Okay.
But eventually I started working in treatment, and I was, entry level position, like $14 an hour.
What drew you to
second
wanting
shift.
What drew you to wanting to work in that field?
I never wanted to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Just organically happened.
Yeah, I never wanted to until I did like concrete work early on in my sobriety, and I was like, I'm never
this
doing
shit ain't for me.
doing rebar work ever again. Like, did not like
That'll
it was
do it.
32 degrees, and I was working for an Italian guy, and I'm like, we can't pour today. He was like, we're pouring today, and I'm like, all right.
His
Yeah,
hands are
saying
just
it.
his hands are just mangled. Yeah.
Yeah, but so eventually I started working in treatment. But to answer your question, it was like I actually at that time when I was going in and out of treatment, I looked up to the people that worked there
Okay.
because a lot of them were in recovery themselves. I didn't realize that when
They were
got
where
in
you
there-
wanted to be.
Yeah. So I took a tech job working at a local treatment center in Bucks County, and that's where it kind of started. But through like people in the program, I watched and I was told how to be a good employee, like show up on time, show up daily, right? Like show up for my schedule. Type
Show up
stuff.
sober.
Show up sober. Like actually do the job when you're there, not like sleep on the job.
Yeah.
Go above and beyond, like stuff like that, which was like very foreign to me when I first got sober. But yeah, long story short, got the apartment. I eventually moved over to RCA. Very much a lateral movement at that time. Sooner rather than later, we were only in that apartment for a year. Sooner rather than later, we were like, we got to figure something out.
Are they like the big dogs in the game? RCA.
RCA, we're one of the larger in the
Okay.
game, yeah. But like you talked about like a lot of the funny business that happens in treatment and whatnot. So those are a lot of like the places in Florida, places in Jersey, places in Cali that bill strictly out of network. So RCA, if you have insurance through your employer or if you're a dependent, right, and you have insurance and it's just like your regular Blue Cross Blue Shield, like we're in network with everything.
Okay.
So much like your local doctor's office, right, where you have a copay, but like more often than not, we're going to be able to take you. But yeah, when the home buying process started, we went through one of her brother's good friends, made it super easy.
Yeah.
And
Because
then
the lending portion is not hard.
what
right?
was funny though is like when we got approved
Yeah, I don't
for
know how
like the
these
number,
dudes even get paid to do their jobs, man.
but like
It's
we
so
got
easy.
approved, like they approved us at like, again, we're both working like entry level jobs.
Sure.
We went through the process and it seems like an overhauling at first, but it's really not. When they give you the first, what are you guys doing, DocuSign, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And you're reading through it, and you're like, babe, they want all this, and it's like, whatever. Once you make it through that process, which was fairly easy, I did it all from my desk at work one day. Like it wasn't a big thing. We got approved, and when we got approved for like $600K, and I was like, babe, we made it. Like,
if you have W-2 jobs, it's fairly easy to get
but
approved.
Thank
to buy
God,
a home.
right? Like she had some people in her life that were like, you don't want a $600,000 mortgage, not with what you're currently making.
Sure.
So we landed on.
What year was this?
We bought it at a great time. 2017.
Okay.
2018 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we did the refi during COVID.
Sure.
So like we're never
You're set up, right?
even though we need another house.
Yeah,
we're never getting out of that house.
You know
Well,
what,
you just don't sell that house.
No.
You just
Tying
fucking
it back
keep
into
that
real
house and rent
estate,
it.
though, this is the best part about it all, right? Like clients call me, this is insane. How can anybody afford it? They're building in all these made-up excuses in their head to why they can't. Rates are too high, government, inventory. I'm like, really? You just got to get yourself a job, and you got to get on the books. You got to start saving a little coin. You have to have access to money somehow. It's not that hard.
Or
right?
claim money if you're a cash person.
Exactly. Like, and
Claim
the people
money.
that say that, the guys that are
Pay some
self-employed
taxes.
and making some money, how the hell can anybody? I'm like, you're greedy and you don't want to pay anything to get government insured loans. I was like, so you just have to change it. It's a lifestyle change, right?
Yeah.
You got to know, like, hey, if I want access to this money, there's certain things to do. But in your case, so you're going to approve for $600,000 house a year after you probably jumped out of a recovery center, right?
Yeah, at this point we're both like 4 years sober, right? So
I mean, you go from, hey, I could be dead, jail, my life over,
a couple years ago, like my mom was paying my phone bill.
So this is big, right?
yeah.
I mean, you're adult, you're out, you're fresh. So tell us kind of how it all went, and it seems like it's.
Did you fuck your credit when you were high?
So I thank God never had any.
Yeah, he
so
started
like,
so
you didn't
young,
have the
he couldn't
access
even
to like
access
max
it.
credit cards. And
I think early on I had
advanced loans and
like
shit.
whatever they would give me, right? And then early in sobriety, I still had no idea what financial literacy was.
You're fucking lucky.
So like that $1,500 starter card, like we burned that up real quick, and I was like, I I don't pay the people that are in the neighborhood. You think I'm going to pay Capital
right.
One?
Yeah, right.
But like, luckily, I didn't put myself in that much of a hole. And also, like, she had like really good financial, habits at the time. So, yeah, the process was super easy. Got approved. That was like a great feeling. And then you start to actually really look at like what you want it to be, and how much money we actually had to put down, and family helped us out a bit, right? I always tell my friends too that also say like, well, how am I, like, who? I'm telling you, like, not saying that you ever ask, right? But like your family, like unconditional love is a real thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Clearly, your mom put you in rehab 9 fucking times.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much unconditional
I'm
with
sure
that.
she
dude.
would. I'm sure she would do jumping jacks to
Yeah.
get $20,000 to buy a home.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went through that whole process. We landed very much like somewhere in the middle of like what we were approved for. Got approved at a phenomenal rate at the time.
Sure.
And then like the rest was history.
Life's
Like,
looking up,
next thing
right?
you know,
Then
it was
you're
like,
rolling.
Well, then, right? Because like everybody thinks like, oh, this home buying process is a huge thing. That was probably the easiest process.
Mm-hmm.
The hard process was like, now you got to furnish this thing.
Yeah.
Now you got to, like, the water heater went.
Yeah.
Now what? Right? So like being prepared for all that stuff. But again, like,
Got to
it's,
paint it to how I want. I got to paint
Yeah,
this nursery
yeah.
pink. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it ultimately, I'm sure it gave you a real sense of purpose, family. Like, holy crap.
it took us 2 months to even realize, like, we're in our, like, we were
You're
literally
your
laying
own-
in bed and
you've
we were
done
like,
a
we're in
visitor
our
in your
fucking
own
house.
spot.
It's ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
It's-
3 years ago, I was on a top bunk. You know what I mean? At 23 years old.
This is an
you know?
amazing success story, really, because like the amount of entitled clients that call us now, I can't do this, I can't do that. They're trying to live outside their comfort zone. It's so challenging. I'm like, guys, it's not. You got to tweak little things here and there. You had to overhaul your freaking life to stay alive, and then you could still buy. So, like, I don't want to hear it.
So
right?
you
Yeah.
you refied during COVID to an even better rate.
Yeah.
What are you, like sub 3 or around 3 probably?
Like 2.7.
That's fucking fantastic. Yeah, I'm at 2.125 on my personal, which is stupid.
But what are the rates today?
7.25, a little over 7.25.
So I understand the argument that they're making, right?
Sure.
Because like, I could never, like, we're fine, even though we want to like definitely like continue to progress and like move on to the next bigger and better thing. Like, we can't justify like getting rid of that house,
No,
but two,
you can't get rid of that house.
and then like more importantly, like taking on an overhaul like that. Like
I can teach you. I can teach you how to utilize that house.
Now it's hard,
else.
like in the sense that affordability is harder, right? It's harder to afford a $4,000 and $5,000 mortgage payment, but and the guys in the unicorn years like yourself that refi, like you should wear it as a badge of honor, right? Like people were ready to make it happen back then, like almost everybody. And there's some people that missed, right? Because either greed or they thought the rates would stay low forever. And now guess what? They're in the market still shopping, complaining about rates, complaining about inventory when they were complaining about rates and inventory 5 years ago.
Now, how much has your house gone up in value, do you think?
double.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about equity, right?
Big time.
So now you have equity to be able to tap into. You can tap into 80. I just tapped into 90% on my personal house. 90% the bank gave me. That's because of the relationship that I have with the bank. But you can tap into most times 80% of the value of your home, right? So, for instance, it's worth $100,000. You can get up to 80. Say you owe 20. Well, now you have the difference between 20 and 80,000. There's 60 G's, right? That you can get to go do whatever else you want with. Now, that's a loan. That's not income, so it's non-taxable money. You're paying on it as you use it, so you get a HELOC. You can utilize that. You keep your home. You rent it out. You know, we can do a market analysis right on that computer over there, see what it's renting for. You rent your house out, and then you can see, all right, it covers it. It doesn't even, you don't need to look at it as, am I making money on it, right? If it makes $500 a month, that's fucking fantastic. But the way that it's in the county, so it's just going to keep going up in value, right? So that's how you need to look at it. Even if it costs you $100 a month, think about that, $1,200 a year. You could waste that on supplements, right? On gym stuff, you could waste that.
If you're shopping at GNC,
Yeah,
but if you're
right,
going to Philly games, you'll never waste that.
That's right. So
Hey, I'll tell you what, he's great. John delivers to my
I
gym.
know.
John Bennett, you
He's
are
awesome.
man.
He's the best.
I text him or put it in order like now, and it'll be in the gym tomorrow.
he's doing a meal plan for me right now.
This guy's phenomenal. Great local business guy. Like, so now that you owned and you're in there and you got your house set up, so you're having kids, got jobs, you got a house, and you're like, oh God, like you're kind of living the American dream without even really knowing it. And what's next? Like, what's next for you guys? I'd imagine, do you struggle kind of mentally with the past kind of life? Or you
No. So much to your point, right? Talking about like the HELOC and like obviously the equity that we have in our house. And like I've seen what the houses are going for rent wise. And not to put like too much out there, right? But it's like well over double than what we pay for our mortgage.
It's fantastic.
Which is like what a place to be in. Like it doesn't get more ideal than
Great.
that. But yeah, so that's where we are now. Good side of it is that the bad side of it is like we've also gotten really comfortable with the way that we live right now.
Sure.
You know, with like, you know, there's a lot of playroom, right? There's a lot of room for like, you know, living outside of our means or like whatever the case may be, right? So it definitely would come down to a more internal conversation where it's like, do we want to tweak some stuff and bear down for a few years here? Or probably much less than that, and like really, you know, look at the future and what we want to be in, like that forever type home,
Or do you want to get a vacation home?
or that too.
A lot of it's happening right now. That's the big discussion because it used to be prior to where rates, you know, the unicorn years was you buy this house, then you'll level up, you'll get your vacation home, and then with your retirement, you'll buy the you'll buy the shore house, right? So now it's, well, why would you ever sell a rate or a home that's doubled in equity? You can rent it, pay that mortgage, pay your new mortgage, and still, you know, eventually sell that. So
Well, essentially, if we pay I mean, it's paying half the next mortgage.
exactly, that's what it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's changed. Like the traditional steps here have changed to do that because now you can go out and just take a home equity line of credit and buy an investment property if you wanted to.
Right.
Or you can go out and buy a Pocono house, shore house, whatever it might be. So this turn from halfway houses to like double in equity rent, you know, this is great because it can honestly happen overnight. If you get a game plan together, you talk to a local advisor, you talk to mentors that you mentioned at your program, local people, like they can help you out. I mean, that's what we do for work. Sure. Like, we've seen the shittiest of situations, but it always ultimately will come down to if the client wants to execute it or not, right?
Yeah.
I
Because
mean, we mentioned Jake a couple times in this, and just, you know, joking around. I mean, he is a fucking goofball, but he's a great dude, right? And like Ed Hardy's a great dude. He made awful mistakes, such as yourself, and you know, he carried himself out of it. And I helped him buy a house.
Yeah.
I did a house, and he was telling me like, hey, I want to buy a house. I'm like, I got you, kid. And come look at this. And he was like, yo, I like this. And I'm like, he's like, but I mean, can I even make something like this happen? I'm like, yeah.
We're always going to make it happen.
I got you. And we did it. And now like he's basically ready to level up again.
Yeah.
And out of equity and all that kind of stuff. So it's like real estate really is when you purchase well, and even if it's just you hold something for 10 years, you're gonna be fine, right? So like it's a really good way to level up your life.
And I got to be honest, you play an extremely important, very small part of someone's life, maybe putting it in the right trajectory. I noticed when you were talking about your brother-in-law, there's definitely some like, man, this guy really looked out for us, right? You could see that as you were kind of saying that. I think in lending we do. Like it seems like, man, we make a lot of money. We're just churning and burning deals. I'm telling you, there's always a feel-good buy, win. And there's a lot of losses that hurt, right? But I think we play just a
lot of nightmare fucking clients.
A lot of nightmare clients all day, every day.
Yeah.
I mean, this is another reason why the podcast is great, right?
People
acts as almost a therapy because it gets you away from the computer, the desk, the phone, of rate, all this stuff. And then you step back and talk to people like yourself that, your likelihood of making any of this possible was probably damn near zero, right?
Well, you said your words that the process of actually the home buying was the easiest part.
The easiest part of everything.
Dude,
and
Pete, you should see how difficult people make this.
Make it.
Because I understand it though,
because we never thought we were going to be there, right? So it was like whatever you want, like we're already an open book.
Sure.
But yeah, I can only imagine that like some people are like, are you?
I understand it though because it is like the biggest step at that point in their life. Like a lot of people, it's like the first like real big adulthood step, like out of college and out of after employment and all. And dude,
a lot just make it hard on themselves because
make
they've
it
had
so
it so
hard on
easy
themselves.
up until a certain point. So maybe your trials and tribulations beforehand, like you said, you were already like, screw it. Like we're playing on house money. Like who cares? If we get it, we get it. If we don't, we've been in worse spots.
You can tell the kids they're like entitled buying a house.
100%.
You're like
Like,
you
they think they
motherfucker,
need everything.
right? Or like lawyers. Listen, I love lawyers. I got a lot of friends who are lawyers, but like they can't get out of their own. They can't unlawyer themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop. Just fucking stop.
I can
Stop
only
lawyering
imagine some
right
of the
now.
like some of the requests that you're saying, right?
I mean, they're great. But again, to your point, like it makes our job. I've been doing it now almost 15 years. It does make it pulls you back. You're like, man, I helped that single dad out.
That gray's coming out in the beer. We know there's 15 years under your belt.
I know. Trust me. It's like, and then there's dudes I went to school with, like that we were screw ups, and I'm like, well, one, we're still alive, and two, I'm glad you're buying, and I'll be happy as hell to help you. So there's always wins here that we go through that keep us in the job. Look, the money's great, but it's not worth the shit we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I mean, when we were fucking at keg parties and getting into fist fights and doing dumb shit, right? And we never thought that we would be doing this kind of stuff. And he was like doing way worse, and he never thought that he'd be doing this kind of shit.
And that's why this is great, right? Like these are success stories for guys that otherwise, we've all had different paths, we've all had different kind of upbringings, all from the same area, but overcame a lot of these challenges. And you see through real estate, it does give you a kind of different purpose on life because now you own something, right? You're married, you have children coming on the way. You actually own the bricks of something, gives you a little more self-worth. And it really opens up possibilities like, okay, where's my family going next? What are we doing next?
Well, to bring it all really full circle, right? Because like you talked about, like the addiction piece, not really, it doesn't really matter if you're rich, poor, whatever the case may be. And I can probably speak for all of us confidently, like that we're all from the neighborhood. So none of us grew up super wealthy.
No.
If anything, we were definitely in like that working middle class, right? Or lower class.
Yeah.
To
working class is what I like to call it.
Right. But you just touched on like the equity side of stuff and like people having like, not even realizing like what they have like in their portfolio.
They have no idea.
Nobody even really like if I'm uneducated on something, I just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Nor do I take any type of action for it. So like you're talking about like, looking back and seeing the part that you've played on multiple different like, deals that you've done. Realistically, like real estate's kind of the name of the game.
He just played a part. To touch on what you were just saying, he just played a part with his father, and we're not going to get too into it. But like he had to open his dad's eyes up to, Dad, like you have this home that you fucking own,
Outright.
You own this
Yeah,
motherfucker.
they all lived in the
right?
neighborhood forever.
You
They
bought
all own it outright.
You bought it 40, 50 fucking
But
years
they're the
ago,
hardest
right?
people to convince.
They don't understand.
I'm not
it.
fucking leaving.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
They don't understand it. And now his dad gets to spend all his time down in Wildwood at the end of his life now. Like, let's be honest. It's the end of his fucking life, dude.
I'm like, hey, what do you have saved?
And that's not depreciating the value in any sense.
No.
You know what? But the thing is, a
It
lot of these
it sets his kids up for success.
So
his dad's move sets his kids up for
and
success.
I selfishly, we do it for a family, right? But it's like convincing our older clients to say, like, hey, you own your house free and clear. You have X amount of money in the bank, 200 grand in the bank. If you end up in a nursing home, if you end up in some type of center, that 200 grand will be gone and you will own nothing. So you will give your kids legitimately nothing except a big bill at the end of the thing. So please leverage this money, this cash in an inflationary period through real estate, right? So take that 200 grand and make it 400 grand, but now you have two assets instead of one.
Yeah.
And if you ever need to sell one, pay yourself back, make a little coin. Like, that's a thing. People think, oh, I got to sell
And the
it.
one asset is really a loan because it's tax free.
Yes.
Bingo.
It's a loan.
Bingo. So, yes.
You could continually get HELOCs, and there's people that do this, and we've talked about this on the show before. If you own 10 properties, you could get one on each one
told you
every
before- I
other
actually
year.
told
every
Sean,
quarter.
that's
And just
our conversation
And keep doing that, and you can live off of that money. And then the people are paying, the tenants are paying it down for you. So it's like you can just keep getting it, and then listen. That's what these super rich people do.
Call their banks or even call us, and we were able to offer it. And it's they like to offer on primary, but say whatever they're offering on the HELOC, get it.
I leverage
Keep it at a zero balance.
I leverage
and get it.
everything I own. Ask him.
Yeah,
I fucking
everything.
leverage everything I own.
This guy likes debt. You don't even care.
I love debt.
Yeah, loves it.
We had this.
I was just watching a YouTube thing last night about that, and like, really, that's not an issue. It's not a problem, right?
There's
not when you're disciplined and you know how to leverage it.
There's a great book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, right?
Yeah.
So
I think we had to read that at Rowan.
Did you?
I didn't read it, but I have read it as I've gotten
So I was
older
telling
multiple times.
I was telling my son about it, and
It's a great book.
we're down Key West, and he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants to do. We're down there, and he's asking us all these questions, like what's debt and this and that, and why do you say like you're not scared of debt? And I hear other people are like, oh, I'm debt free, I'm living life, and I'm like, fuck that. They don't even know what finances mean, right? Wealthy people leverage debt to make money. Poor people think I got to get out of debt. It's like two different mindsets. Once you like learn how to utilize debt and utilize the bank and other people's money, dude, you're living free, And that's what I was telling him. Like, I'm like, me and mommy make money while we're sleeping.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do. And he's like, what does that mean? And like, he's starting to slowly get it and slowly understand
And like
it.
what you're telling him, he might not ever learn at high school. He might not ever learn in a college.
It'll click one day, though.
And this is like what I don't understand. Like anything that we ever need, I was talking to my wife about it the other day. Anything that my kids will ever need is right there on that phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Down to like long division.
Sure.
Right. You can just ask Siri at this point. So why aren't we just building character at this point? Like, what is school at this? Like, what are we doing?
I love it. I've never.
Dude,
heard
they told
anybody
us
say that. It's great,
they
dude.
told us with math, like, you'll never have a calculator with you at all times. Lie, motherfucker. That's a lie. Like, I got a supercomputer in my hand.
Depending
at
on
all
what
times.
AirPods I got them in my ears
Yeah,
all the time.
right.
So what do you got next as we kind of wrap up? Because this one's running long, but of course it's going to run long. It's an amazing story. Really, it is amazing. You should be extremely proud. These kind of stories perk you up, right? Like I'm going to be able to jump on my phone and be excited to kind of work again because it's like, oh shit, you kind of take for granted what you got, and you get a little gratitude kind of after these episodes because it's pretty damn easy to lose it all, or never have it to begin with, and the way you've dug yourself out. And I'm telling you, it's as easy as that. Like you said, the lending process you just have to have a little self-discipline. You have to listen to the people around you, the professionals, right?
And you got to sacrifice for a little bit. You lived in a third floor of your mom's house on Johnson Street over there, and then you
People forget that.
Then you
right?
got a shitty apartment for a little
People
bit.
always forget
So
that.
that's the biggest difference between you and a lot of the clients, right? They could never sleep in their parents' house with anybody, but they need the $600.
Or never sleep in an apartment.
Can
that's
never
a little
rent
shitty.
an apartment. I can never do this. I can never do that. Are they the clients that we're still working with now that are still looking to buy houses more or less?
Yeah.
Right? Because they had this sense that they are too good to do any of that, but that sense will never allow them to do what it takes to win in real estate. So this is amazing. Like
They've never had any failures in life.
You've had a lot, and that's the whole point. perfectly said. That's the whole point of this whole thing. The failures, the story is great. The success is awesome, dude. I'm extremely.
Tell us about your podcast and
please.
and where people can find that and what it's about.
So essentially, it's the same thing that we just did a whole episode on, right? So like getting clean and sober is all well and fine, right? But the whole kind of like mission behind Pain with a Purpose is like sobriety's cool, recovery's cool, but like I want more, right? And I don't want more in the sense of like I want to continue to progress in my job or I want like more of a financial gain. It's just I want more life, right? So like, what does that look like
that
for
your
anybody
past
that we
life
have
don't
on?
define you guys,
No,
right? I
not
mean,
at
you guys
all.
are so you're not even the same people anymore.
Yeah.
That same, and that I think that common misconception, like the dry January thing is always I don't drink. No one gives a shit, right? Like it doesn't matter, like if you're using it or not. It matters if like how you're willing to view yourself and dig deep. Like drinking doesn't define Nick. It never has. It never will. And we try to make that thing.
Well, drinking made me a real fucking asshole.
Well, made you bad,
And it made me a bad person. It brought the worst parts out of me, and it brought that looking at yourself in the mirror the next day, like, what the fuck?
You can be a better
I
version
don't
of
fucking
yourself.
like this.
Well,
And then I got I stopped right before I turned 40, and I'll be turning 42 this summer. And one of the bigger parts of that was, all right, I got a kid. It's going to be going to high school. Now he's in high school. And I'm like, how the fuck can I, first off, anything that he's going to do in high school I already did, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I tell him, like, you don't need to be doing this stuff. Like, you're a good athlete, focus on athletics, fucking put your head down and just, focus on that kind of stuff. You don't need to party, you don't need to drink. If he's seeing me shit-faced, absolutely shit-faced, saying dumb shit.
You're not practicing what you
Right?
preach. Why?
And then my little girl is like, how could I look at them when I'm fucking, I just act up when I drink. Right? And it's not like I didn't have an addiction like you had. And it was different. It was not like it controlled me and it made me do things. It was more like when I did drink, I was never able to have a glass of wine, bring out a couple bottles. I was never able to have a beer or two, line up 12 beers, line up 12 shots, let's go.
Yeah, your time went on.
I wasn't able, I'm never able to, like, I'm very envious of people who are like my wife is able to, my wife's able to make a drink. Like, I like the taste. I never liked the taste of alcohol. I like what it did to me.
Yeah.
I never liked the taste of it. I just wanted to get fucked up.
Yeah, but then again, to your point, the next day, you're not the best version of yourself. You clearly, obviously, weren't for years and years and years. And now I feel like we're seeing a really amazing version of you. Like I said, I was talking with one of your brothers earlier, and, I'll tell, he was like, he's doing great. I'm really happy for him. Like, that probably means the world, and I shouldn't have shared it, but whatever. I was talking to him at the same time, and it's extremely inspiring, right? Because you see a lot of guys that bullshit through the neighborhood and bullshit. My own clients bullshit me. And I'm like, you're wasting my time BSing me. I don't care if you buy a house or not.
Like, I'm going to see your finances.
I'm going to know, and we're going to know. I'm giving you the blueprint, but you can't execute because you can't get out of your own way. You can't stop lying to yourself. And we all have something that holds us back, right? So
now that's something we didn't touch on your brother. Now, your brother's in law enforcement.
Yeah.
Right. And I knew him from that. And I knew, like, his friends that he was they all became cops. And it's funny because I trained a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, was he just like on you? Was he like, yo, what the fuck are you
so
doing?
The way that we grew up was, I mean, again, still strange, right? So like we grew up two completely different lives, although for the majority of the time we knew that we existed. We knew that we were brothers. As we can kind of continued to get older, right? Like we started to have like more interactions. Like I think I met my brother for the first time either like a sports banquet or like Christmas at my dad's house.
Okay.
And it was like this, and like my dad was normal. He was like, "This is your brother Sean." I'm like, "This isn't awkward right now."
This is normal for you?
I love it.
But as like
that
you
doesn't
know,
seem strange to me at all. By the way, just because I know your old man.
so
I
like
knew him
when we started to get like more friendly and closer, he started to like really see what was going on, and he never really said much to me about it. I'm sure he knew, right? Because everybody talks in rock.
Sure.
But there definitely was times. I remember vaguely like a time where he reached out and he was like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing?" And I think my response probably was something along the lines of like, I don't know, but do you have $20?
Yeah.
You know
That's
what I mean?
crazy. That's wild.
And I think he gave it to me actually, right? Wow. Like probably knowing, right?
Yeah.
But like probably owe him $20. But yeah, so like my brother always knew, but like he never, you know, we were far enough apart where it's like he couldn't really play a part in my life in the sense of like, what the fuck.
And he's a tough, no nonsense guy, but he's got a big ass.
Now, 10 years sober. 10 years sober now. Have you made amends with everybody?
For the most part,
fucked over.
For the most part, and I always say it on like a public forum. If I owe you money, let me know.
Yeah.
There was that one time where I gave you. You know, you came in a CJ and Action reference earlier. You owe me 100 for that bar.
Well, I just did a podcast the other day, and I was like, listen, like there was a time at Roman where like the black polo jackets were like definitely a thing.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, like I found out a way to get into anybody's locker, even if there was a lock on it.
Yeah.
And I would, like while class was going on, and I was at the bathroom, I was taking polo jackets. And like, you know, I had no clue whose they were. I had no clue who I took from, who I didn't take from. But I say that as part of like the amends. Like, yo, if you know what I mean, I'll never know if it was really them or not. But if you're down bad enough where you're going to say I stole a polo jacket and I didn't, whatever, right? Yeah. But yeah, so
we should. Have you ever gone down there to talk to kids?
I did for summer school one time.
We should go down there because I was just talking to John, the Pendergrass, the president, and I was like, he'd asked me and a couple other friends to go down there and talk about finances with kids, and I said, John, I'm not interested in that. I'd rather you put me in front of your kids who are behavior problems like I was, and because I'm them. And they're me, so I wanted it's almost like a healing thing. I was like, the way that I'm thinking of it's like, give me the opportunity to talk to these kids and let them know, like, you know, like, I know you think like none of these people understand you and all that shit, and like put me in front of those kids.
Yeah,
because I was a little jerk off.
Yeah,
I was, and I regret that now. And I tell my son that now, like, dude, it's not worth all the laughs that you get to like make fun of a fucking teacher and be a dickhead and all this stuff. Like, it's not worth it. Like, don't be that guy. Like, it's just not worth it, man.
No,
like I regret that. I don't have many regrets, but I regret like being a little dickhead and not taking it serious, and then not graduating with all my friends and all that stuff. I had to go to the military. Not that I had to, I really wanted to, but I was in this situation where like I had to choose a fork in the road. And I actually I would love to go down there and talk to kids. And I feel like if me and you went down there and talked to them together, I think it would be like a multi-pronged approach to talk to these kids.
Well, I think the pods help too, right? It's like because kids at that age, they don't want to hear your wins. They want to hear like, man, because they're lost. They have no idea. They're juniors. They have no freaking clue day to day what they're doing. Yeah. Everybody felt like that. But I guess the whole point of this, to wrap it all up, is, you know, we beat ourselves up over stuff like that back in the day. But like, again, it was a different time. Guidance was a little different. I must say for both of you guys, and myself included, like I'm sure shit proud of where I came from and how I made my life kind of work out the way. I've had a lot of help throughout. Trust me, I screwed up more times than most. But yeah, you guys are becoming, I mean, you're amazing versions of yourself. And again, like that home buying process to me is it always ties back to it. That's just one little spoke in the whole wheel that could really turn it all around.
You gotta think, dude, like you're playing an integral part, you as well, right? An integral part in like someone's safe place, essentially. Like that's where the whole meat and potatoes of life and me showing up here today happens, you know. So
and look,
I take it for granted sometimes. Like I'm looking at the clock right now; it's 12:59. 3 blocks away from here right now, Lafayette Hill, there's people doing in 30 minutes a walkthrough of a fucking $600,000 house that I'm selling them, and it's going to probably be their forever home. And it's like I take that for granted because it's like, I buy the house, I do everything to it, I do it right, and
he's
sell.
Also
but it's like
done what he doesn't say is throughout the years, there's been so many people with so many unique situations that we got to cultivate deals and make work, right? It's because, and there's been tons of times we've gotten burned. Tons. Yeah. More times than not, like, it's the conversation, we're going to get screwed here. And I'm like, I don't think so. And he might say, he don't think so. And we get screwed. Yeah. But we do it again because you just got to give the people the benefit of the doubt, right, in our job. And then again, it's the part that feels good for me. The money's cool. The people are cool. But we could really help somebody out buying a home and restart their life more or less. Like, that's why we're here. So Chris, as we were mentioning, like, it's awesome, like, real estate lenders play a little spoke in the wheel of like your progress and things like that, but really it ultimately comes down to the person you want to be, and you're amazing, inspiring to everybody. I cannot wait for this one to get out, so please just let us all know, one, where we could see your podcast, because people should tune in And I cannot wait to share your information so people can jump on. So please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so on Instagram, right, first and foremost, that's where like most people see the reels and whatnot. So at Pain W Purpose, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, it's all Pain with a Purpose podcast. And then, yeah, I work for Recovery Centers of America, so if anybody ever needs anything, right, just reach out.
Where are they going to reach out? Say if someone's struggling here.
So somebody wants to email you. Do you do
if
that?
someone's listening to this
Yeah.
at the end of their, they're either interested in real estate or they're struggling. So
So they can reach out on the podcast page, right?
Okay.
I personally manage that whole thing. They can personally reach out to me.
All confidential.
Yeah,
If somebody
absolutely,
wants access to like help for one of their family members, somebody they know, somebody just wants some information. It's
Actually
all
happens
confidential.
more frequently than you know, especially with like people in the neighborhood, right? Where yes, absolutely, it's protected by HIPAA, confidentiality. Doesn't matter if like your dad knew my dad. You know, like
cares?
there's none of that.
everybody's got to just get, cut the BS. Like, as you get older and you have different goals, like you got to internally check yourself, right? Like
There's no stigma to
there's
having
no stigma.
problems.
Like people like to drink. People go out of control. People do drugs. They get out of control. It happens. That's what it's designed for anyway. But, as leaving it at that, man, really great episode. We're going to share all the information. Really proud of you. Can't wait to see what's next. And we'll have both links up there, Pain with a Purpose. And for another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show, Chris Woods, Nick Cessna, and Ryan Dolan. We're out.
If you enjoyed our episode, please consider supporting the show by rating and reviewing the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Atomic Real Estate Show to find out when new shows drop and to participate in our community Q&As. The Atomic Real Estate Show was brought to you by Direct Subs. Direct Subs is the #1 place for real estate investors to connect with local contractors for their flips, rentals, renovations, and new construction projects.